Hey everyone, welcome to r/Tales from Tech Support, where we get to have a little chuckle at the technologically disadvantaged, like me. I'm Uncle Reddit, and have I got a story for you. This is worse than remote troubleshooting without internet. I worked at an arcade game sales and repair shop for a short time. I was told that we had gotten a call that a customer's pinball machine was not starting up, and they'd like to know what to bring. It was a solid-state game from around the 90s or so. I asked what they meant by not starting up, and they said, lights come on, but they press start and the game doesn't actually start. By this point, they've already ended the call and scheduled an appointment to go over and repair it. I use that term loosely. But first, the guys want some idea of where to start. I ask if the display shows anything or if there was any sound at all. They say they didn't really ask, but they could tell it was getting power because the customer said the lights were on. Side note. Troubleshooting an arcade machine when it's not the actual motherboard or logic is more like working on the electrical system of a car than it is working on a computer. The lights that are always on when the machine is on often run on a separate power supply from the motherboard and aren't controlled by it. Therefore, you could have a machine where the actual motherboard isn't getting any power at all, but you can see lights on the back box, playfield, and the coin slots. Back to the story. I decided to give them a little checklist to run through with the customer, to try and figure out what's likely the cause and figure out whether they need to obtain a service manual or schematics for the game, or if the customer already has that available, and what things to just automatically bring over that aren't necessarily in their all-purpose parts kit. Silly me, I assumed they had such a thing at the store. However, the customer service guy states that the customer owns a business and we just can't call back a guy like that. I clarified to him that I don't need to interact with the customer directly at all, but this is the info I would need in order to help their technicians know what to bring, what things to look at first, and the questions I'd be asking the customer did not involve the customer mucking about with anything inside the machine whatsoever, just exclusively focusing on the things you could observe from the outside. Mr. Customer Service, not the boss, still insists that we have no further contact with the customer until the technicians get over there. Needless to say, I told them that I really can't do remote troubleshooting without any ability to talk to someone that's there. If they wanted me to talk through someone else or write an email and have someone proofread it to make sure their email looks professional and friendly, that's one thing. But I really can't imagine how they'd expect me to be able to help them with this. The symptoms couldn't even be narrowed down to one board, and even if they could, that wasn't the kind of shotgun solution the owner approved of. It always amazes me what people think is professional and what isn't. Like, calling the guy back somehow looks totally unprofessional? Well, you kind of got to get an idea of what you're dealing with before you get there. When I call the appliance guy and tell him my washing machine is making a certain noise or doing something or not doing something, he can usually get a general idea of what he's going to need before he comes. That's professional. Family tech support. Show-stopping problem, moronically simple solution. I feel like family tech support is a lot different to professional tech support. Not only are you not being paid for it, you're demonstrating to your family that you understand technology, where they usually don't, and probably that their investment in your education was well spent. My family's all over the world. Occasionally, my dad will ask me to buy things from our home country and post them to him. He's a very big Star Trek, The Next Generation fan. I never was growing up, so I've been trying to share my BR rips of Star Trek Picard with him. Via any file transfer setup, it's too unstable and always fails. So I figured, I'm sending him a box with his latest purchase anyway, I'll slip one of my spare hard drives in with it. He agrees. I share a list of my Plex library. He sends back a list of what he'd like. I load up a spare 500 gig hard drive, nearly to the brim, carefully bubble wrap everything, and send it on a 10-day journey across the continent. So last week it arrived, seemingly undamaged. Of course, he has Windows PCs where I'm all on Linux. I made sure to NTFS format the hard drive beforehand, but I'm always apprehensive that Windows will decide not to like the drive. This has happened to me a lot, even on hard drives that were formatted on Windows PCs, and is one of the many reasons I hate the things. Anyway, he hooked it up to his laptop, and Windows asked him to insert a disk into drive F. He tries it on his modern Windows 10 laptop, and his old Windows 7 laptop can't be upgraded because of specialist software, no internet access. Same deal, neither laptop can read the disk. Okay, so I start running through the possibilities. The drive spun up, so it's intact, so we probably have damaged disk headers, right? Not impossible. The box was probably x-rayed a few times, or Windows has just decided something isn't 100% perfect. Maybe it can tell that the filthy Debian server has been writing all this data to its precious NTFS file system, so it won't work. Thank you. So the best option is to run check disk, which leads me back to the first paragraph. My dad is an engineer, but he is not a computer engineer. He knows how to use his CAD software, but that's about it. He defers to me to actually make the things work. We both get frustrated when there's a proxy between me and the computer. I need direct access to fix this while keeping my sanity. So I now have the job of somehow getting onto his laptop 5,000 miles away to poke at his hard drive and see what the deal is. First thing I try, Google Hangouts screen sharing. We video call quite regularly this way. Of course, he only uses Hangouts on his phone, and the camera isn't good enough to make out anything on the screen. So we get him signed in on his laptop, and about 10 seconds into any video call, the video and audio from his end freeze. Multiple attempts, either of us initiating the call, always the same thing, and the screen share button doesn't work for him at all, even though it does on my Ubuntu laptop. I think the recent Firefox update has interfered with it. Okay, before we settled on Hangouts, we used Skype. Let's resurrect his old Skype account. This is, of course, when the Skype client on his laptop refuses to open without an update, and then refuses to update. How about TeamViewer? Seems I have an account from ages past. Alright. Log on and get prompted for a 2FA token, and I don't have it set up on my current phone. Oh, crud. I seem to have lost the seed. And my recovery codes are nowhere to be found. Frack. Okay, clutching at straws, we try Zoom. Thankfully, both our companies are amenable to allowing personal use of our Zoom accounts. I try to install Zoom on my personal Ubuntu laptop, and it falls flat on its face with Qt errors. Yet I use the same client on my work Ubuntu laptop, so I fire that up instead. Finally, we have a stable video call going. We have a catch-up and talk about various things before turning to the task at hand. Talk about the TV shows and movies he's found on Netflix during lockdown. He mentions the hard drive I sent him before that he's still using. I honestly forgot about it. An old Western Digital Elements, probably 5 or so years ago. So I mentioned to him that the hard drive I sent him this time isn't a ready-made one. It's a USB enclosure containing a laptop hard drive. Light bulb finally starts glowing. See, these enclosures I have are great for my use. They're completely toolless and I can pop the disk out of them in seconds. Great for when I'm swapping between SSDs. And to do that, they rely exclusively on the SATA connector to hold the drive in place. And I've just shipped this via parcel post several thousand miles. Mentally kicking myself, I asked him to unplug the cable, then pop the top cover off the enclosure, revealing the drive itself. Then push the drive firmly in the direction of the USB cable. It engages firmly into the SATA connector. Then plug it in. USB 500 gig F. Movies, TV shows, music. I feel stupid now. For once, please insert a disk into drive F was a valid error message. Yep, more often than not, it's always a simple solution. And sometimes the simplest solutions are the easiest ones to overlook. At least you stuck with it and got it working now. Did I say that out loud? Short, but not sweet. I'm the IT coordinator for a police department, and I have to deal with some large personalities. Some are fun, some are not so fun. This one time we had an issue with the DVR that all of the cameras in the department were connected to. The board that half of the cameras connect to has gone out. The person that deals with the system knew and had a call into support, and a part had been ordered, but this was an older system and there was a bit of a lead time. During command staff meeting, lieutenants and up and civilian supervisors, the issue was brought up about the cameras in the DOI processing room being out. I informed them that we were aware and that it would be fixed as soon as we had received the part. One of the lieutenants, who always seems to have something to complain about, pipes up. Well, it's an officer safety issue and it needs to be taken care of ASAP. Without thinking, I said, well, I can't pull one out of my butt. As I looked across the table at everyone looking at me, the chief, with a half smile, says, well, we don't expect you to do that. Now, I couldn't see Lieutenant Complains a lot from where I was sitting, due to a pillar, but apparently his head snapped around towards me and his eyes got huge. Needless to say, I was not his favorite person after that, but luckily he did something stupid and had the choice to be demoted or fired and chose to work the desk at the court building until his retirement, so I didn't see much of him after that. I will say that I got a number of high fives and fist bumps from the other people in that meeting. I guess he wasn't their favorite person either. I find that the older I get, the thinner my filter gets. When I was younger, I used to really be able to put on the brakes and keep those inside thoughts from escaping out my mouth. Lately, not so much. You own a what? Kinda front desk. We had a few desks that shared first contact with customers. Mine was the repair desk, technically, but I could do standard sales, customer refunds, stock checks, and back orders too. My desk was also the hub for floor walkers and security's radio charging docks. Elsewhere, we had the checkouts and business customer lounge. Giant perspex box with sofa, coffee machine, and terminal for payments and basic forms. This particular post involves ink cartridge refills and replacement for printers. For those unfamiliar with these things, there are literally thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of different ink cartridges and designs. A long time ago, there only used to be perhaps 20 different ink cartridges for a small amount of photo quality machines for the domestic market, and fewer for the expensive office types. It used to be a very controlled purchase because this stuff was very expensive to begin with. Now you can get a cartridge for perhaps 10 cents per unit or less. Really? I'd like to go where those are. We used to refill cartridges with syringes and needles with selected shades of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and different brands had different shades of each. Whenever we offered our services, we asked customers to sign a waiver, which told the customer, your experience of color and quality of your printing may differ from the original brand's expectations. In other words, your kid's skin tone in a printed photo might look different from reality, and you'd need to adjust print settings accordingly. We store these waivers in conjunction with a customer number and copies of receipts for various uses, including the unlikely event of an audit from the ink companies we had licenses with, and to identify repeat customers who might benefit from a promotion or two. Anyway, an early Karen walked right up to my desk and slapped down a mess of paper, an ink cartridge stuffed in a file transparency pocket, and a receipt, demanding a refund. Okay, fair enough. I asked what happened and they said, the machine leaked everywhere and messed up 16 copies. Wait, 16? I thought this number was odd. Surely you'd stop printing after the first or third mess? I'm trying to print party invitations for my kid and I can't because you effed up the refill. I stared at her for a moment, but was willing to overlook the rudeness on account of the woman's anger. What the F are you going to do about it? Second strike. Well, let's see, what printer are you using? What's that got to do with it? I need to know which brand of ink I need to check. Oh, it's a BMW. What? To my knowledge, they don't, nor ever, have made domestic printers. Maybe something in their own offices, but I highly doubt it. A BMW? They do printers now, do they? I lazily slip on a glove, latex-free rubber-like glove, and pick up the mess, taking out the cartridge. On inspection, I can just about make out the Canon logo, and I'm about to access the records with my clean hand, but pause on the next sentence coming out of her mouth. Duh! Okay, I want to speak to a manager. Third strike. I'm the manager on shift right now. How can I help? No, I want to speak to your supervisor. Oh, the owner? They're away on business elsewhere, but I can take a message or give you their email address if you'd like. Ugh, can't I just take my money back now? I'm sorry, but all refunds need to be assessed and still take 5 working days to process. I gingerly place the ink cartridge back down on the messy photo paper. You know what? I bought the printer from you too. I'll come back with it and you can refund me for that too. She snatched up the mess, stuffed it in her handbag. 3 days later, I'd almost forgotten about the incident when Karen came back with a big gray Brother printer and slammed it on the desk, breaking a chip off the paper tray in the process. I glanced up at a nearby security camera watching my till and looked back at the customer. There! She also whipped out a transparency pocket and receipt and slapped that on my desk too. I picked up the Canon cartridge and held it next to the Brother printer. Thing is, there is no way that cartridge would fit into the Brother cartridge holder. They were 2 completely different shapes, and Canon usually held individually colors in individual slots, while Brother had a cartridge for 3 colors and 1 for black. There is no way I knew the other 2 could ever meet. I opened the Brother printer cover and peered into it with incredulous horror. It looked like a blood bag had exploded in there. The rubbery ribbon that pulled the print head back and forth was nearly torn in 2, and the carrier was practically demolished. I looked closer and saw what looked like deliberate marks from a knife or screwdriver or something. It was all chewed up, but from an external direction. The machine did the rest of it to itself from the mechanical action. Ma'am, did you do this yourself? Well, I had to. It wouldn't fit. My boyfriend had to use a hammer. Your husband? You didn't do it? That's not the point. I made it fit, but it didn't work. My boy's party is in 2 weeks and... I'm sorry, madam, but I cannot help you and I have to ask you to leave. I just didn't have the energy to deal with this stupid woman, and we're always reminded that we don't have to serve anyone if we don't want to. Time wasters or abusive customers are a big no-no. Oh boy, did she rage. Threw the printer at me over the desk and prompted a police call, while security went into bouncer mode. They calmed her down outside, and when the owner got back the following weekend, reviewed the security footage. A magistrate later ruled in our favor for damages and distress to our staff as a whole. Turns out, in the hearing, the Karen was actually on meds for psychological stuff, paranoid schizophrenia I think it was, and had a history of kicking off in other shops all over town but wasn't getting social services, county budgets, etc., but magistrate enforced her rights to it and other help later. Bittersweet story really. Mental health is a big struggle, but yeah, don't serve if you don't feel like it. Still, a BMW printer. I still smile trying to imagine one. Man, printers are expensive enough without all that mess. Put a BMW badge on it and you're paying 10 times more than you would otherwise. Keyboard isn't working at PC, but works when connected to notebook. I work for an MSP, which customers are mostly small and medium-sized businesses. Sometimes one of our customers' employees need IT support at home. For example, telephone doesn't work, etc. Today I got a call from a guy who is half retired. He works for one of our customers, but is in retirement. He has a notebook and a PC. The PC is his private one, and the notebook is from work. Here's the call. G equals half retired guy. M equals, you already know who it is, it's your boy. Me. Hey G, how can I help you? G. Hello M, my wireless keyboard on my PC isn't working, can you help me? Me. Sure, do you have another keyboard around? G. No, I don't have another keyboard around. Me. Do you have your notebook around? G. Yeah, I have it right here. Me. Okay, can you please put the receiver of your keyboard in your notebook and test if the keyboard's working? G. Sure, wait a second. I've put it in, but the keyboard is working with the notebook. Me. That's strange. Can you restart your PC? G. Sure. After a few more troubleshooting steps, including reboot, changing USB port, etc. Me. Can you please connect the keyboard again to the notebook? I found it strange that the keyboard is working there. G. Of course I can. He connects the receiver to the notebook. It's connected now and I can type on the keyboard. Me. Internally beating his head on the desk. Can you please check if you can type on the keyboard from your PC? G. Oh, yeah, that's not working either on my notebook. Case closed. Keyboard's broken. Yep, sometimes you gotta be very, very specific. Like talking to my children. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. If you've enjoyed this content, would you do me a favor? Would you consider giving this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and maybe click that little bell icon so you don't miss the fat guy with the beard telling you stories. See ya!